Microphone check, 1 2 1 2. Well, it sure looks like it's working. Okay, everyone, it looks like there was a short internet outage, but I'm back now. I don't know what happened with my ISP, but they seem to have gotten their things together. Now, I'm not entirely sure where we left off, so we will just pick up from Truncate. All right, so the issue that I wanted to review was this round to int in get time string from double. Now, when you look at the time, you'll see that the amount of seconds that have passed is 1, but the current time value is 0.6. So what's happening here, we can reset it. All right, the time is still 0, time is still 0, or the seconds is 0, the time is set to 0.4, but once it crosses 0.5, 0.6, the amount of seconds passed is 1 second. Now this is because of this round to int invocation in the main activity main activity class, namely in the get time string from double method. So what's happening here is, in order to process the amount of time and display it accurately, Cal added some code here that would use the time as an integer so that you can get the right division, turn it into an integer, use division, and then you'll get the whole numbers associated. All right. For example, if we look at this function here, we have the modulus operator, which says 5 mod 2 and your answer is 1. So what the mod operator does is take the remainder. So if you divide 5 by 2, it's 2 with a remainder of 1. So what's going on here, let's say you were to, all right, let's give you guys a quick example here. Well, yeah, give you a quick example. Clears by itself. All right, so let's say you've been using your stopwatch and a little over an hour goes by, right? Okay, so the time is 4,273. So this is the amount of seconds that have passed, right? So what happens is this gets rounded to, this number would be rounded to an integer. Let's assume that, I know that these are all whole numbers, but you know, just for the sake of example, let's pretend, right? So 4.738724, whatever, and it gets rounded to 4,273, right? And that gets stored inside of result int. To get the hours result int, you now take result int and take the result int mod 86,400, and then you take that number and divide it by 3,600, and that gives you the amount of hours. Now 4273 mod 86,400, it's less, so you're not going to get a remainder, you're just going to keep the whole number. So really this is saying 4,273 divided by 3,600, which is going to be 1 point something. If you pull up our fancy calculator application here, is that 4273? Yep. Is 1.869 terminated, which you can just get rid of that and the answer is 1. Oops, it's not 0, I promise you. Okay, the answer is 1. All right, so now that we have our answer, yeah, so that's how you get the hours. You do the same thing down here to get the minutes and the seconds and so on, right? But the issue is, because it rounds the time to an integer, you're not even getting the accurate representation of time when you display it in the application. Hence why when the time is any number, and whenever the decimal exceeds 0.5, the number is going to round up. So you'll get 1 second when only 0.5 seconds has gone by. You'll get 5 seconds when 4.9 seconds have gone by. You'll get 10 seconds when 9.999999 seconds have gone by, and that is inaccurate. So in order to fix this, let's start by putting this back to how it was. Okay, put this back to points. 001. This. Yes. And that should fix it, right? Great. All right. Okay, so the first step is we're going to use the Truncate method, which is in the Kotlin's math library, right? Now, Truncate, this is what it's called when you take a decimal off of a number. It's the same thing as if you have like give you an even better example. So Truncate, you just take the decimal off and leave the whole number. It's the same as, man, I'm really trying to time this, but this website is way too slow. But it's the same as if you take two integers in software development, you divide them. Because they're integers or whole numbers, you can't store any decimal. That's why if you do something like 5 divided by 2, the answer will always be 2. It's really 2.5, but the 0.5 is truncated. So, Truncate method should get rid of the decimal in time. Now, time is still going to be stored as a double. So, if we try to compile this, actually, let's import that library first. All right. So, as you can see, now we're running into an error, and this is because the Truncate method does not change the data type, so it's still of type double. So it accepts a double time, truncate it, store inside result int, which you can't because, or you can store inside result int, but ours is now taking a double and dividing it, or taking a mod of a double over a whole number. Each of these things is going to, because result int becomes a double, hours, minutes, and seconds become doubles, and so when you try to invoke the make time string method, because the method signature only accepts integers, it's going to cause an error. So how do we fix this? How do we get the integer value? It seems like we're so close. What's the next step? Well, now we want to turn this truncated time value into an integer. So instead of saying round to int, let me see, can we do it? We're going to invoke the toInt method. And what this does is transform our time value into, or the truncated time value into an integer. Now, it should be noted that this truncate method does not affect the value of time, just returns the value of the time value if it were truncated, but it doesn't affect the time variable at all. So now, save this. Open up our log again. And if we double click, one more, as you can see, time is 0.6 and the number of seconds stored is still at 0. All right. Do it again. Times 0.7. All right, so the timer still works as expected. All right, clear the logcat. I'll minimize this so you can see it better. All right, so as you can see, the time runs as expected. It counts it the way it's supposed to. If you reset it, you'll notice that it takes one, like it doesn't skip to 1 and then start counting. 1 Mississippi. 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, and so on and so forth. So now with the time value properly stored and used for getting the amount of time passed, I'd say our stopwatch is finally complete. So let's go over what we did. All right, we started by moving, oh, I need the code. Oops. All right, we started by moving this line here where the time is incremented. We moved that from below the send broadcast invocation so that this, or excuse me, we moved it below the put extra method so that it first uses the value of time and then increments it to be used again later. So when you start the app, you press start, it starts at 0 seconds. Next, we went to the schedule fixed rate method and we changed the period from 1000 to 1. By setting it to 1, well, the period is the number of milliseconds for the rate that it invokes this time task method. So instead of it incrementing once every second by 1, it increments once every 1,000th of a second by 1,000th of 1. So it gives you a more accurate measure of the time. After that, we tested to make sure that it worked properly by hitting start and stop just to make sure that it doesn't increment this value that we see displayed. And we used the log so that we can see the value of the time each time we hit start and stop, right? And the last thing we did was we got rid of any rounding by going back to the main activity. And in the get time string from double method, we removed the round to int invocation and we truncated the time so that we removed the decimal. And then after that, we used toInt in order to turn it into an integer value. This way we can still perform our operations to display the right time. So that's about it. All right. So with all that being done, I want to go over some of the work I did this last week. Well, firstly, I want to point out that this is a big part of software development. There are going to be times where you have to go and look up documentation and self-learn and self-teach, but it's not always going to be 100% clear. I want to thank Code with Cal for even creating this stopwatch tutorial in the first place. I didn't know anything about services or how to set up a timer service or anything like that, so I thank you very much. But still a couple little logical errors in here, and I cleaned them up for you. So yeah, but yeah, when you go through a tutorial, make sure that the end result works properly. Test it, really make sure it works. One thing that I did when I was done was I just spammed the start stop button just for fun, just to see what would happen. See, maybe it might crash the app if you press it 2, 3, 4 times. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna just assume that because it's in a YouTube video and someone made a full tutorial that it works. I'm actually testing it live to make sure that everything works as expected. And unfortunately it didn't. But fortunately for us, this is my bread and butter, is debugging code and fixing things. So I got the opportunity to go in and, you know, set things straight and show you guys how to make it work again. The other thing, yeah, so that's pretty much it. Go through documentation, try it yourself, make sure it works. If it doesn't work, see if you can go through and fix it yourself. If not, then go and find another tutorial. Don't just jump ship and say, okay, time for another tutorial. Nah, because then you'll end up in tutorial hell where you're just doing one tutorial after another, after another, after another. And it's going to be the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. And nobody wants that. Something I did very well this past week. I did a good job of committing to this project. I didn't do it every day like I'd planned, but most days, I'd say maybe 5 out of the last week, I spent sitting down and working on this code and experimenting, tinkering, and figuring things out. I mean, honestly, the biggest thing for me was going in and messing with this time task method, playing around and just moving the code around and adjusting the time that the seconds increment by, and also messing with the period. And if you hover over in your code, if you hover over the parts of a method that you don't understand, like here the period is set to 1, if you hover over it, okay, I guess it's making a fool out of me today. Maybe it's because the app is running. Nah, I shouldn't do that. Well, anyway, there's usually a way to do this. Maybe if I highlight it. Nope. Okay, maybe if I time task. There we go. It's the method itself. So here, when I hover over schedule at fixed rate, you see the method signature from the timer class, and it takes a task, which we have here with the time task. Whoops. It accepts a task and then a delay and a period, and it tells you what each of these parameters does. So like the task is the task to be scheduled, delay is the delay in milliseconds before the task is to be executed, which we set to 0 because we want it to be done. We don't want any delays at all. And then the period is the time in milliseconds between successive task executions. So this is the task. We store the time and increment it, and we do this every millisecond, right? So that was how I was able to figure out exactly how this part of the code works. When I found the issue with the rounding, or with after figuring out how this works, I got the time value to be stored in a more precise manner to make the app more in line with an actual stopwatch. And then when I found that it was rounding, I went to the get time from string. Well, I didn't just go straight to this method, but I looked around, and I mean, here it only happens when the app is running, so you have to start it, right? So when you click on start, that's going to lead to this time incrementing. So I started in the start timer method, and I just went through and I followed it around. Oh, here we go. See, try setting the text view each time we start the timer. So this is me. This is just some code I added in, or a comment I added in for like an idea. And I even logged the time equals in time, so I could track what the time was equal to at the time of, or as the app ran. All right, so through this, I came across the start service. How did I get to get time string from double? I got to it from somewhere. If timer started, stop timer, else start timer. Here we go. Binding.timer text view.text. So this is what actually sets the text within the text view to the number from the time. So here we get time string from double, and you pass it time. So now I went down to the get time string from double method, and this is where I saw that you had the round to int. So from that, it was like following the breadcrumbs a bit, you know. Then we used truncate in order to cut the decimal off, set it to 2 int. So I see what Cal was trying to do. He just wanted to use an integer so he can get the right number of hours, minutes, and seconds to be used in the time string, which makes sense. It's just that instead of rounding it, it's better to just cast it as an integer. Yeah. So that's about it from me. I want to thank you all for tuning in. I know there were some hiccups tonight with the internet and everything like that, but you know, we don't care about those things over here. We keep pushing forward, we keep moving forward. That's how we do it at Coding Fanatic, right? You know, but yeah, thank you all again for tuning in. If you like content like this, you can go ahead and hit subscribe, all that good stuff. I got my social media links in the description below, and you can join a mailing list over at codingfanatic.com. So all that being said, I'm your host, Richard, and oh, right, I guess I have to talk about what comes next. Well, because the nature of my app is a countdown timer, I want something that lets you set these values and then count down. And then when it's done, it makes like a buzzer or an alarm or something like that. So there's another tutorial that I found, and I can pull it up real quick actually. Okay, so in this tutorial that I found by Sandeep Bhattacharya, he goes over how to create a countdown timer with a seek button. The seek bar, which I think is still pretty neat. Oh, you can't see it. It's been a long night. Sandeep Bhattacharya. Here is a tutorial he made on a countdown timer with a seek bar, which you can see right here. But my favorite part of this, I'm not going to do it because it's going to be loud, or I guess I can mute. Well, anyway, once it counts down to 0, makes an alarm sound. So that alarm is the key component of what I need for my Superman timer, because that's how you're gonna know when time is up, right? So yeah, I'm just gonna kind of, I guess, skip through this, and I could just figure out the piece that I need, but I should learn and get more practice with the timer service. So I'm gonna start working on this tutorial next. Yeah, so I guess by next week, does he have any pieces here? He does not. I don't know. Hard to say where I'll be. Did I mute it? I didn't mute it.
Let's create the layout.
Let's see. Let's skip through real quick just to see what he's got here. You know what? It doesn't matter. I'm gonna get started on this tutorial, and we'll pick up wherever I'm at is where we're gonna pick up in next week's live stream. All right. So yeah, again, thank you all so much for tuning in. I'm your host, Richard Clark, signing out, and I will see you all on the next one. Peace. Mic's still on. It is still on. Ha!